The images are haunting. Homes completely washed away. Cities underwater. People begging to be rescued. The markings on home tell the story of how many lived and how many died there. This was the aftermath of one of the deadliest natural disasters in U.S. history, Hurricane Katrina.
Seeing people on roofs, waiting for helicopters to come help them, it was kind of scary as a 13-year-old to wonder, like, that could have been us.
It was August 2005. Lauren Waddell was just 13 years old living in New Orleans, Louisiana, a city known for its vibrant culture.
My dad came home and told us, you need to start packing, there's a hurricane coming.
Hurricane Katrina first made landfall on August 25th. It escalated to a Category 5 storm, bringing heavy rains and 175-mile-per-hour wind. It left a path of destruction across the Gulf Coast, but the worst was yet to come. When Katrina slammed into New Orleans, the fierce winds and rising water led to dangerous storm surge. New Orleans is 6 feet below sea level, like a bowl, so the city built a system of walls, or levees, to keep the water from overflowing. But the surge of water from Hurricane Katrina was so strong, it broke over the levees and walls, leaving the city to drown.
The city of New Orleans is in a state of devastation. We probably have 80% of our city underwater.
Homes were lifted off their foundations, and cars floated like bath toys. Right now, I'm in the lower 9th Ward, and when the storm hit, this area was flooded with water that pooled in from the broken levees. In some parts, these houses were submerged in 6 to 9 feet of water, meaning if I were on this street 10 years ago, I wouldn't be able to stand.
Turn on the TV, this man is standing in water up to his knees, and it's constantly rising.
Lauren and her family had evacuated, but despite warnings, many residents stayed behind.
Didn't have no other place to go, really, and didn't think it would be this bad.
Those who couldn't seek shelter in their neighborhoods were huddled in an unlikely location, the Superdome Stadium.
We just waiting till we ride the storm out.
When the storm finally passed, thousands of people were left stranded in their houses. Many died waiting to be rescued.
It took days for many people to get help and to be rescued. Some were on their roofs, some were in other structures, and some didn't make it.
Those who survived were desperate for food and water.
We all are desperate. We need something to eat. We need to feed our babies. We need to give our babies some water.
Hey, scoop, drop.
Some started stealing from local stores. The city became a dangerous place.
I feel like the storm could have been handled a lot better than it was. I don't think people realize that when they're watching the news that these are people, these are human beings who are suffering, who are stuck in an American city with no water, no help, and it's really sad to think that they had to suffer like that.
After seeing the horrific images, many Americans couldn't believe this was happening in their country.
This recovery will take a long time.
There was backlash against President George W. Bush and the federal agencies that were supposed to help.
We all were overwhelmed by this catastrophic event. There had never been a storm of this size hit the United States.
There were also reports that officials knew the barriers protecting the city were weak and should have been upgraded or fixed years before.
What New Orleans was not prepared for was the man-made disaster that followed in the wake of Katrina. This was due to the degraded wetlands and also the impaired state of the levees and storm surge barriers. They failed in large part because they were not strong enough.
Much of the city of New Orleans was underwater for weeks. And in that water, gas from cars, chemicals from cleaning products in homes, and oil from a massive spill turned the water into what many called a toxic soup. When Lauren finally returned, her house was unlivable. 4 feet of water sat in her living room. Describe what the house looked like when you came back.
When we walked into the house, everything was just a complete mess. We had cabinets which were just coming off the walls. Our furniture had floated to different parts of the house. My mom gave us a mask and we had a suit on, like a Ghostbusters kind of suit, which was kind of funny and sad at the same time.
Some areas never fully recovered. The cleanup was just too monumental. Entire neighborhoods left abandoned. Many residents were forced to evacuate and make a new life in other cities around the country. Lauren wouldn't move back to New Orleans for at least 6 months. Her family temporarily relocated to Dallas, Texas. Was there a culture shock of any sort?
It wasn't so much as a culture shock as much as it was people weren't as accepting as I would hope they would be. The kids, they would say, well, did you have to swim here? Are you gonna have to swim home? And I'm sure they thought it was funny, but it wasn't exactly funny when you don't have a home to go to.
Tomorrow, we visit New Orleans 10 years later, finding out how it began its decade-long journey to the city it used to be. Ariel Hickson, Channel 1 News.